God bless you, everyone. Like I said, I owed you guys a live stream to make up for the one that I messed up because of my internet problems. So I'm gonna give you this stream for worship, to be able to give him praise a second day, to be able to give him praise and glory. Because after all, don't we want more of the Lord? We want more. We want more. We want more. Oh, all we need is found in Jesus. All we want is more of you. Nothing else, nothing else can satisfy our heart's desires. All we want is more of you. For the Lord is good. For the Lord is good, and his love endures. Yes, the Lord is good forever, and I'll shout it out from the mountain tops. Yes, the Lord is good forever. Más de ti es todo lo que necesito. Más de ti yo quiero, Jesús. Nada más, nada más podrá llenar los corazones. Más de ti yo quiero, Jesús, porque bueno es Dios, porque bueno es Dios, grande es tu amor, bueno es nuestro Dios por siempre. Y yo gritaré con todo mi ser, bueno es nuestro Dios por siempre, porque bueno es Dios, grande es tu amor, bueno es nuestro Dios por siempre. Yo lo gritaré con todo mi ser, bueno es nuestro Dios por siempre, porque bueno es Dios, porque bueno es Dios, grande es tu amor, bueno es nuestro Dios por siempre. Y yo gritaré con todo mi ser, bueno es nuestro siempre, for the Lord is good, for the Lord is good, and his love endures. Yes, the Lord is good forever, and I'll shout it out from the mountaintops. Yes, the Lord is good forever. We want you more and more. We want you more and more. We want you more and more. More and more. We want you more and more. We want you more and more. We want you more and more, more and more. We want you more and more. We want you more and more. We want you more and more, more and more. Más y más queremos más de ti. Queremos más de ti. Queremos más y más de ti. Queremos más. Queremos más de ti. Queremos más de ti. Queremos más y más de ti. Porque bueno es Dios, grande es tu amor, bueno es nuestro Dios por siempre. Y yo gritaré con todo mi ser, bueno es nuestro Dios por siempre, porque bueno es Dios, grande es tu amor, bueno es nuestro Dios por siempre. Y yo gritaré con todo mi ser, bueno es nuestro Dios por siempre. For the Lord is good and his love endures. Yes, the Lord is good forever, and I'll shout it out from the mountaintops. Yes, the Lord is good forever. For the Lord is good, and his love endures. Yes, the Lord is good forever, and I'll shout it out from the mountaintops. Yes, the Lord is good forever. For the Lord is good. Yes, his love endures out from the mountain tops. Yes, the Lord is good forever. Oh, I forgot to put this on. Feel free to worship if you know these songs. Let it rain, let it rain, let it rain, let it rain. I feel the rains of your love. I feel the winds of your spirit. Now the heartbeat of heaven, let us hear. I feel the rains of your love. I feel the winds of your spirit. Now the heartbeat of heaven, let us hear. Let it rain. Let it rain. Open the floodgates of heaven. Let it rain. Let it rain. Let it rain. Open the floodgates of heaven. Siento la lluvia de tu amor, siento el viento de tu gloria. La presencia de Dios está aquí. Siento la lluvia de tu amor, siento el viento de tu gloria. La presencia de Dios está aquí. Siento la lluvia. Siento la lluvia de tu amor, siento el viento de tu gloria. La presencia de Dios está aquí. Siento la lluvia de tu amor, siento el viento de tu gloria. La presencia de Dios está aquí. Haz llover, haz llover. Abre las puertas del cielo. Haz llover, haz llover, haz llover. Abre las puertas del cielo. Haz llover, haz llover. Abre las puertas del cielo. Haz llover, haz llover. Abre las puertas del cielo. Haz llover, haz llover. Abre las puertas del cielo. Haz llover, haz llover. Abre las puertas del cielo. Let it rain. Let it rain. Let it rain. Open the floodgates of heaven. Let it rain. Let it rain. Open the floodgates of heaven. Let it rain. Let it rain. Let it rain. We want more of you. We want more. We're thirsty for your presence, God. We're thirsty for your presence, God. We want more of you, Lord. We want more of you. We want more of you. We worship you, Jesus. Let it rain, 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 let it rain. Let it rain on us, let it rain on us, let it rain, let it rain. So let it rain on us, let it rain on us, let it rain, let it rain. So let it rain on us, let it rain on us, let it rain, let it rain, let it rain on us, let it rain on us, let it rain, let it rain, let it rain on us, let it rain on us, let it rain, let it rain, let it rain on us, let it rain on us, let it rain, let it rain. So let it rain on us, let it rain on us, let it rain, let it rain. So let it rain on us, let it rain on us, let it rain, let it rain. Oh, 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 oh. Let it rain, 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 let it rain. We love you, Lord. Come like you promised, God. 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 Come like you promised. Stir the stagnant waters of my soul. Merge me with your river, which springs life. I don't have all the right words to say that will provoke you to want me anymore than you already do. So won't you come like you promised? Pour out your spirit, pour out your spirit. Won't you come like you promised? Pour out your spirit, pour out your spirit. Merging darkness where I hide. Pull me into your arms. Pull me into your arms of peace. Bring me hiding, or reach out to my running. Oh Lord, come fill my soul with your love. So won't you come like you promised? Pour out your spirit, pour out your spirit. Won't you come like you promised? Pour out your spirit, pour out your spirit. So won't you come like you promised? Pour out your spirit, pour out your spirit. Won't you come like you promised? Pour out your spirit, pour out your spirit. Mueve el estanque en mi ser. Úneme a tu río. Úneme a tu río, dame vida. No sé qué palabras decir que provoquen que me quieras más de lo que me llamas. Ven, Señor, ven como dijiste, derrama tu gloria, derrama tu gloria. Ven, Señor, ven como dijiste, derrama tu gloria, derrama tu gloria. Ven, Señor, ven como dijiste, derrama tu gloria, derrama tu gloria. Ven, Señor, ven como dijiste, derrama derrama tu gloria, 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 derrama, 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 derrama tu gloria, derrama tu gloria, derrama tu gloria, derrama tu gloria, derrama tu gloria. Me llamas como padre, como un hermano, como un león, feroz como nadie, con fuerzas me buscas para abrazarme, envuelves en tu amor. You love like a father, love like a brother, love like a lion, fierce like no other. You violently chase me down to embrace me, engulf me in who you are. You love like a father, love like a brother, love like a lion, fierce like no other. You violently chase me down to embrace me, engulf me in who you are. So to come like you promised. Pour out your spirit, pour out your spirit. Won't you come like you promised. Pour out your spirit, pour out your spirit, pour out your spirit. Oh, pour out your spirit. Oh God, pour out your spirit. Oh, pour out your spirit. Oh, we want 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 your spirit. Oh, we desire your presence, God. We desire your presence, God. Oh, we want your presence, God. We want your presence, God. We need your presence, God. We need your presence, God. We need your presence, God. We long for you. presence we need, your presence we want, your presence we need, your presence we desire, your presence we want, your presence we need, your presence we want, your presence desire, your presence we want, your presence we need, your presence we want, your presence desire, 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 your presence, God. We worship you, Lord. We worship you, King. We worship you, Lord. We want you, King. We want you, King. We need you, King. We want you, King. We desire you, my King. We desire you, my King. We desire you, my King. There is no one like you, God. There is no one like you, God. There's no one like you, God. There's no one like you, God. There's no one like you, God. There is 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 no one. There is no one. There is no one. No one. No one. We want more of you, my God. We want more of you, my God. There's no one else like our God. There's no one else like our God. There is no one else like our God. I can feel over me rushing winds of glory of the Holy Spirit. I can feel over me rushing winds of glory of the Holy Spirit. I can feel over me rushing winds of glory of the Holy Spirit. I can feel over me rushing winds of glory of the Holy Spirit. Spirit, glow from the heavens, breathe mighty wind, revive us. Spirit, blow from the heavens. Breathe the mighty winds, revive us. Spirit, blow from the heavens. Breathe the mighty winds, oh Lord. Spirit, blow from the heavens. Breathe upon us, awaken us. Oh, lo puedo sentir, los vientos de gloria del Espíritu Santo. Oh, lo puedo sentir, los vientos de gloria del Espíritu Santo. Oh, lo puedo sentir, oh, lo puedo sentir, los vientos de gloria del Espíritu Santo. Oh, los puedo sentir, los vientos de gloria del Espíritu Santo. Sopla hoy desde el norte, trae tu soplo, avívanos. Sopla hoy desde el norte, trae tu aliento, vivifícanos. Sopla hoy desde el norte, trae tu soplo, avívanos. Sopla hoy desde el norte, trae aliento, vivifícanos. Sopla hoy desde el norte, trae tu soplo, avívanos. Sopla hoy desde el norte, trae aliento, vivifícanos. Spirit, blow from the heavens. Breathe a mighty wind, revive us. Spirit, blow from the heavens. Breathe upon us, awaken us. Spirit, blow from heaven. Breathe the mighty winds. Breathe the mighty wind. 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 Breathe the mighty, 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 mighty winds. Spirit, blow From the heavens, breathe a mighty wind, revive us. Spirit, blow from the heavens, breathe upon us, awaken us. Spirit, blow from the heavens, breathe a mighty wind, revive us. Spirit, blow from the heavens, breathe upon us, awaken us. Breathe upon us, God. Breathe upon us. 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 We need you, Lord. We need you, God. We need you, God. We need you, God. Now more than ever before. We need you, we need you, we need you. We need you, God. We need you to pour out your spirit, God. 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 Derrama tu presencia. Queremos tu presencia. Derrama 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 tu presencia. Yo quiero más. Yo quiero más. derrama tu presencia, derrama tu presencia, derrama tu presencia, derrama tu presencia. Yo quiero más, yo quiero más. Rosie, if you want, you can share this with the church folk, so that way they can actually have worship again. Because one of the things that I was thinking about is just doing worship and then just worshiping, so everybody can just join in and worship. I'm talking about current people, even past people if you wanted. Derrama tu presencia, 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 derrama tu presencia. Yo quiero más, yo quiero más. Derrama tu presencia, derrama tu presencia. Queremos tu presencia. Yo quiero más, 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 yo quiero más de ti. Queremos tu presencia, queremos tu presencia, queremos tu presencia, queremos tu presencia, queremos tu presencia. Yo quiero más, yo quiero más. Queremos tu presencia. Yo quiero más, yo quiero más, más y más, más y más. Yo quiero más, yo quiero más, más y más, más y más, más de ti. Lord, your presence. We want, Lord, your presence. We want, Lord, your presence. Oh, we want more. Oh, we want more. We want you, your presence. We want you, your presence. We want your presence. Oh, we want more. Oh, we want more. We want your presence. We want your presence. We want your presence. Oh, we want more. 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 More of you. We want more. We want more. We want more. We want more. We need you to guide us, Lord. In these dark times, we need your light to shine on us. Necesitamos tu luz. Necesitamos tu luz. Necesitamos tu luz. Oh, necesitamos tu luz. 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 Oh, Lord, Señor, oh Señor, oh Señor, oh Señor. Oh, Señor, oh Señor. Oh, we want more. Oh, we want more. Ven Espíritu Santo, ven Espíritu Santo, ven Espíritu Santo. Estoy aquí, desesperado por ti. Con un corazón sediento, que esperar beber de ti. Estoy aquí, estoy aquí, desesperado por ti. Con un corazón sediento, que esperar beber de ti. Cuánto tu gloria desciende al lugar. Toda la tierra tiene que adorar. Resucitan los muertos, sanan enfermos por tu poder. Queremos de ti, llenado de ti, Espíritu Santo, beberás en ti, que ama tu gloria, que esperamos por ti. Ven, 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 Espíritu Santo, ven, 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 Espíritu Santo, ven. Ven, ven, llena este lugar. Espíritu Santo, ven, 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 ven. Espíritu Santo, ven, ven, ven. Espíritu Santo, ven, ven. Ven, llena este lugar. Estoy aquí, estoy aquí, desesperado por ti. Con un corazón sediento, que esperar beber de ti. Estoy aquí, estoy aquí, desesperado por ti. Con un corazón sediento, que esperar beber de ti. Cuánto tu gloria desciende al lugar. Toda la tierra tiene que adorar. Resucita los muertos, sanan enfermos por tu poder. Queremos de ti, llenado de ti, Espíritu Santo, bebemos en ti, derrama tu gloria. Esperamos por ti. Cuánto tu gloria desciende al lugar. Toda la tierra tiene que adorar. Resucita los muertos, sanan enfermos por tu poder. Queremos de ti, llenado de ti, Espíritu Santo, bebemos en ti, derrama tu gloria. Esperamos por ti. Ven, 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 Espíritu Santo, ven, 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 Espíritu Santo, ven, ven, ven. Llena este lugar, Espíritu Santo, ven, 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 Espíritu Santo, ven, 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 Espíritu Santo, ven, ven, ven. Llena este lugar, Holy Spirit, come, 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 Holy Spirit, come, 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 Holy Spirit, come, come, come. Come and fill this place, Holy come, come, Holy Spirit, come, 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 come and fill this place. Oh, Holy Spirit, come, 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 Holy Spirit, come, 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 Holy Spirit, come, come, come. Oh, come and fill this place. Come and fill this place. Come and fill this place. Fill this place. Come and 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 fill this place. Llena este lugar. 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 Come and fill this place. Llena este lugar. 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 Let's sing that together one more time. Llena este lugar. Llena este lugar. Llena este lugar. Llena este lugar. We worship you, Jesus. Sorry, I don't really respond to comments that are being placed because I'm too busy looking, but I do look at the comments. So every time I finish the singing, I then look through the comments and I see from the top down. So whoever is here from the beginning to the end, you get to actually see what, that. So Waleska, hi, how's it going? Everything is going good. Thank you for the music. Thank you for that warm welcome. Hi, Rosie. It says Rosie Reyes is watching with you. Let me turn off the reverb for a little bit. And the echo. Hi, Rosie. How's everything going with you? Hi, Waleska again. God bless you, Ralph. Hi, Rosie. Thank you for the super and for the dog. Natasha, amen. Yes. Rosie, glory to God. Winona, hi, Winona. How's everything going? Aaron, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I give it all the glory to God. Thank you so much. Worshiping along with you at home, praising our Savior and King. Yes. Yes, Rosie, whenever you get a chance and I'm live on stream, send this to every. You sent it to a specific group chat that we're in, but the newer members are not in that group chat. So, so whenever you are, whenever you sending messages to people, send them to every new member too, like Relisa, Mari del Judice or something like that. Everybody that is part of the church currently, and even people in the past that just want to worship, just send it to them. But I'm saying like specifically those those people that that may need to, see. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Yes, we praise you, Lord. We praise you, Lord. You are worthy to be praised. Yes, yes, I saw that. I'm trying to see newer messages. So, yes. So, I guess I see these messages first before I take a look. I'm still looking at the messages from my phone. To those who are just joining in, hello. I just had an hour live stream of just worshiping. I'll send you there. I'll send you as much as possible. But definitely, yeah, it's wonderful, and at the end of the day, worshiping God and bringing worship back is something that, especially that the Lord has been gnawing through me. Not to mention that live streaming is something that was confirmed to me to do. So at the end of the day, it's like I have to do what God wants me to do. And that's what He wants me to do, is to do live streaming. Hello, everybody who are just joining in. I want to see who's joining in. So if you can please leave a comment, because I want to see who's actually viewing. If I'm correct, I see Patricia, ¿cómo está? Dios le bendiga. God bless you. Haven't seen you in a long time. And I guess I'm gonna switch to my phone so I could acknowledge the people that are, essentially coming in. I think I turned the phone in the wrong direction. Give me a moment. So, hello, Alfredo. Thank you for coming. Hi, Waleska. Thank you for coming. Elizabeth Ortiz, thank you for coming. Andrew Oliver, thank you for coming. Of course, Rosie is watching with me. Natasha, thank you for coming. Gigi Martinez, thank you for coming. Of course, Winona Hori, thank you for coming. Aaron, Chris, thank you for coming. David Marizaldi, thank you for coming. Let me see who else. And of course, Patricia Palacio. Thank you again for coming. So this live stream was to make up for the live stream that I did on the last, I think it's the last Sunday of April, that basically had so many issues with it. Basically what happened was that as I was live streaming, things kept on stopping, things kept on messing up, and this thing just kept on messing up and causing problems. And oh my goodness, were they giving me problems. So just that's what happened. And I needed to make it up because this was something I had to do. You're very welcome, Rosie. You're very welcome. I'm doing this every Sunday at 8 p.m. For those of you who are just watching right now, I'm doing worship sets every single Sunday. You can invite people to come worship along with me. Like you see in the bottom, where it's starting from here and it's scrolling. It says, feel free to worship along. So if you see a song that you recognize, then by all means, just sing along. So basically, I just want you to join in the worship, joining in the praise to the Lord, and just giving Him glory above all else, and of course, just above all else, just being able to be a steward for or a vessel for His presence to use in a great way. So, for those of you who are just joining in, I see that there are three people that are eyeballing, but it doesn't show who is actually watching until they actually come into the video. So if you're seeing this, actually come into the video so I can it'll show me who specifically is watching. Or if it's from before, then just leave a comment. That way I can know it's you. I want to leave my live stream in for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then I'm going to end it. Just want to say hello to the people that come, because at the end of the day, I want to be able to be cordial and say hi. How's everything going? So it's just a matter of just commenting down, show up on the video, actually touch the video, not just the speaker icon, just actually open it up and just say hi. I want to see you. I want to see how things are going. You know, that kind of a thing. So let me see. Is there any comments here? There is absolutely not. And I need to turn that over here. So I wish that there were more songs that I want to do, but worship songs are what I'm able to do at this point. Hi, Gigi. I am well. Yes, I am well. Thank you so much for coming and worshiping along with me if you have, because I don't know whether or not you have, because I cannot hear you. So, yeah, Gigi, ever since this quarantine happened, it's like, I need to worship. We need to worship God together. In these dark times, we need the light. We need the Lord. We need the Lord to be with us, to be able to we need the Lord to come in and to take hold and take control, because with the coronavirus situation that's going on, we need the Lord's presence now more than ever, and it's important. Thank you so much, Gigi. Thank you so much. But like I said, we need the Lord's presence more than ever, and at the end of the day, if we're not worshiping, then there's no purpose. It's like, how can I put this without sounding too... I hope that you guys pretty much understand the gist of what I'm saying without sounding too bossy, because I shouldn't. Yes, we need to seek His presence more and really get into His presence. And I had to make this stream up because the last time that I had done this stream, not yesterday, which went off without a hitch, the week before that was terrible, was absolutely terrible. I don't know if you're able to notice this on my profile, but I have like 7 videos, and those were because it kept getting disconnected, because the frames kept dropping, kept causing issues, and basically I have fixed that problem, so it doesn't really do that anymore. So as you can see, I was able to go live for about an hour, 20 minutes without any issues whatsoever. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the most part. So I am going to say goodbye, and I'm going to be coming back next Sunday, because I do streams. Just to plug in an advertisement, I do streams for worship every single Sunday at 8 p.m. because that seems to be the best time, especially that I have something here that I don't want you to see, because I have a green screen on, for those who are just coming in and not noticing that. and you can see through it to the sun. And I have to do it at night. So take care. I will see you next Sunday for another worship stream. What I would like for you to do is share this along with people, share my stream with people, because at the end of the day, we need to give the worship of the Lord publicity, because we're giving so much publicity to the virus, even though we need to know what's going on, but we need to spread the gospel, not the virus. So let us. I'm gonna go. Take care, and I will see you next Sunday for more. Bye. That was really dumb. Sorry. Bye.